My ex-fiancée left me for my effortlessly fit oldest friend. On the morning they were supposed to marry, her brother called and said, "Ethan, get to Alder Cove. You need to see what she finally discovered." The call came at 8:41 a.m. while I stood in my Portland kitchen wearing the black t-shirt I had slept in, waiting for a delivery of waffles, coffee, and enough junk food to carry me through the day. My plan was simple: close the curtains, silence my phone, and avoid every person who might send me a photograph from the wedding. I had survived the previous 7 months by refusing to look backward. I worked, I trained, I slept. I repeated those 3 things until the memories stopped feeling like broken glass under my skin. Then, an unknown number appeared on my screen. I almost ignored it. The area code made me stop. "Ethan?" a man said. I knew the voice immediately. Daniel Mercer, the bride's older brother. Calm, practical Daniel, who had once helped me change a tire in the rain and later acted as if we had never met after his sister chose my best friend. "What happened?" I asked. "You need to come to Alder Cove Lodge." "No. Do not change clothes, do not call anyone, just get in your car." Behind him, voices overlapped in panic. Something heavy struck the floor. A woman shouted a name I could not understand. Daniel lowered his voice. "Trust me, you will regret missing this." I should have ended the call. Whatever disaster had arrived at their wedding belonged to them. They had built it without me, lie by lie. I owed them nothing, not comfort, forgiveness, or even curiosity. But I was already reaching for my keys. To understand why, you need to know who Evelyn Mercer had been before she became the woman who could look me in the face, tell me I was imagining things, and then leave with the person I trusted most. I met Evelyn when I was 28. I worked as a risk analyst for a regional insurance company, which meant long hours, color-coded reports, and conversations no one remembered 5 minutes later. Evelyn was an architectural consultant at a prestigious firm downtown. She spoke with the quiet certainty of someone accustomed to being listened to. We met at a charity dinner in the Pearl District. I mispronounced the name of a French wine and she corrected me without smiling. When I laughed, instead of pretending I had known all along, she looked surprised. Then she laughed too. That was what drew me in. The rare moments when her polished surface cracked and something warmer appeared underneath. She came from money that never needed to announce itself. Her mother chaired museum boards, her father owned coastal property. Evelyn drove a spotless silver Volvo, kept fresh flowers in her apartment, and treated lateness like a moral failure. For nearly 4 years, I loved her quietly and completely. At first, being with her made my life feel larger. The first things I surrendered seemed harmless. I stopped choosing restaurants because Evelyn always knew somewhere better. I replaced half my wardrobe after she said my clothes made me look unfinished. At dinners with her colleagues, I learned to wait before offering an opinion. She never ordered me to disappear. She simply rewarded the quieter version of me. Whenever I pushed back, she would tilt her head and ask why I was being defensive. By our second year, I knew the expression that meant I had said too much, so I spoke less. Noah Bennett noticed before I did. Noah had been my closest friend since our first year at Oregon State. We had survived terrible apartments, failed relationships, and one winter when my mother became seriously ill. He once drove 4 hours because I sounded wrong on the phone. He was also everything I was not. Noah was lean without trying, charming without preparation, and comfortable in a room. He worked as a creative director and made strangers feel included before they knew his name. When Evelyn met him, they clicked. At first, I was relieved. The woman I loved liked the friend I considered family. Noah joined us for dinners, hikes, and gallery openings. He made Evelyn laugh in a louder, less controlled way than I ever could. I noticed it. Then I blamed myself for noticing. The first warning came 10 months before everything collapsed. Evelyn and I were supposed to attend a birthday dinner for our friend Maya. Noah canceled an hour beforehand, claiming food poisoning. Evelyn, who planned to arrive after a late meeting, never appeared. At 10:30, I texted her. "Still at work?" She replied 5 minutes later. "Went home. Exhausted. Early presentation tomorrow." I mentioned that Noah had canceled too. Her answer came instantly. "That's unfortunate." The words were normal, but the speed was not. For a moment, something cold moved through my chest. Then I told myself it was ridiculous. 2 people could miss the same dinner. Coincidences existed. The second warning was a scent. One Thursday evening, I unlocked Evelyn's apartment and smelled Noah's cologne in the living room. Smoke, cedar, and citrus, something he had bought in Copenhagen. I stood by the door and breathed in again. He had been there. When Evelyn came out of the bedroom, she kissed my cheek and asked why I looked confused. Was Noah here? Her eyes shifted, not away exactly, but inward. He dropped off a folder for the museum project. Why? No reason. Her expression tightened. "Ethan, you know men and women can be friends, right?" I didn't say they couldn't. You didn't have to. Within 30 seconds, I was apologizing for asking a question she had already answered. That night, she lay beside me with her back turned, and I stared at the ceiling, listening to the distance between us breathe. I told myself it was nothing. Months later, I understood that every lie had depended on my willingness to explain it for them. The third warning was not a message, a smell, or a missing evening. It was the way Evelyn had begun to go silent. After nearly 4 years, I knew all her versions of quiet. There was tired quiet when she rubbed the bridge of her nose and forgot where she had placed her phone. There was angry quiet, precise and sharp, designed to make the entire room feel responsible. There was work quiet, when numbers and deadlines continued moving behind her eyes even while she sat beside me. This was different. This was the silence of someone who had already made a decision and was waiting for the most convenient moment to announce it. I felt it every time she looked past me during dinner, every time she answered a question with half a sentence, every time her phone lit up and she turned it face down before I could see the screen. Instead of trusting myself, I accused myself. I decided I was insecure. I was jealous because Noah was fitter, funnier, and more successful. I told myself Evelyn deserved a man who entered a room without checking whether he belonged there. So I tried harder. I booked a weekend on the coast. I started cooking the meals she liked. I bought tickets to an architecture exhibition she had mentioned once 3 months earlier. She thanked me for each gesture like a manager, acknowledging completed tasks. 6 weeks before I caught them, we argued about marriage. We were sitting in her apartment with rain tapping against the windows. I asked when we were going to stop talking about a future and start building one. Evelyn folded her hands in her lap. I think we need to be honest about whether we are actually compatible. The word landed with the cold weight of office language. What does that mean? It means we may want different lives. We have been planning the same life for years. You have been planning it, she said. I remember how still the room became. I asked her to explain. She said I had stopped taking care of myself. She said my confidence had changed. She said being with me sometimes felt like carrying someone who refused to stand. Then she used the word that stayed with me. Mismatch. Not cruelly, almost clinically, as if we were two materials that had failed a stress test. I drove home and sat in my car outside my building for nearly an hour. Then I called Noah. He answered on the second ring. I told him everything. He listened without interrupting. He said Evelyn was overwhelmed. He said pressure made people question things they already knew. He told me not to push her. Give her room, he said. She will remember what you are to her. His voice was warm, loyal, familiar. I thanked him. He knew she had already chosen him. That is the part I return to most often. Not the bedroom, not the lies, the hour he spent calming me while quietly helping her leave. Before ending the call, he promised he would speak to her for me. I did not know then that they had spent the previous night together.
The fourth warning arrived disguised as a coincidence. I had taken a Friday off to deal with a repair in my apartment. At noon, I decided to surprise Noah with lunch. His office was 10 minutes away. The receptionist smiled when I gave his name. He's out with a client, she said, probably until 4. I left the food on his desk with a note and went home. That evening, I mentioned it to Evelyn while she opened a bottle of wine. She paused with the corkscrew halfway through the foil. You went to his office? Just to drop off lunch. Oh, 1 syllable. Too careful. What? Nothing. I'm surprised you had time. Later, Noah texted me. You were a legend. Sorry I missed you. I looked at the message and wondered why neither of them had asked the obvious question. Where had he actually been? I filed the thought away. By then, I had become skilled at storing evidence against my own instincts. The truth arrived on a Tuesday in March. I had told Evelyn I would be at a company dinner until 9. The event ended early after an executive became sick, and I reached her building at 7:18. My key still worked. I stepped inside, carrying dessert from the restaurant. Music played softly from the bedroom. A man laughed. It was Noah's laugh. For one impossible second, my mind refused to translate the sound. Then Evelyn laughed too. The bedroom door was not fully closed. I pushed it open. They were on the bed, beneath a pale blue blanket we had chosen together. Noah wore the gray sweatshirt I had left there months earlier. Evelyn was curled against him, her head on his chest, while a movie played unnoticed on the television. Noah saw me first. He did not jump up, he did not cover himself, he simply froze, one hand still resting against her back. Evelyn turned. The expression on her face was not guilt, it was irritation that the schedule had failed. I stood there holding the dessert bag, while chocolate sauce leaked through the bottom and onto my shoe. No one spoke. The television kept laughing. Finally, I said, "Right." I placed the bag on the dresser and walked out. Evelyn followed me into the hall, calling my name. Noah stayed in the bedroom. "Ethan, wait, please let me explain." I turned once. "How long?" Her face changed. That was the answer before she gave it. 4 months. 4 months meant the museum folder had been a lie. The birthday dinner had been a lie. Noah's comforting phone call had been a performance. She reached for my arm and I stepped back. "Don't touch me." She began talking quickly. She said they had not planned it. She said feelings had developed naturally. She said she never wanted to hurt me. People always say that after arranging the hurt in secret. I left before she finished. She called 23 times that night. I answered once, shortly after midnight, because some damaged part of me still believed there might be a sentence that could make the world recognizable again. there wasn't.
Evelyn's explanation was organized. She said the affair had begun after a museum meeting. She said she and Noah had tried to stop. She called their connection unexpected, as though betrayal were weather that had moved in without warning. Then she returned to me. She said I had changed. I had become withdrawn. I no longer looked after myself. We wanted different things. We moved through life at different speeds. Every sentence placed responsibility between us, while the decision remained theirs. I care about you deeply, she said. Deeply. I learned that night how people use that word when they want credit for love without accepting the consequences of their choices. When the call ended, I sat on the kitchen floor until morning, trying to understand how two people I trusted most had built a second life inside mine. Noah sent one message. I'm sorry you found out like this. Not for doing it, for allowing me to see it. Neither of them apologized after that. 3 weeks later, someone sent me a photograph of them holding hands at the coast. 2 months later, Evelyn wore a ring. By summer, invitations were circulating for a wedding at Alder Cove Lodge. Friends forwarded screenshots while pretending they were protecting me. Did you see this? Thought you should know. You seem to be handling everything so well. I muted nearly everyone. For weeks, I moved through work like a machine. I slept badly. I ordered food because cooking required decisions. My shirts tightened, and each change seemed to confirm Evelyn's judgment of me. One night, I opened a photograph from their engagement party. Noah looked effortless in a navy suit. Evelyn stood beside him. Under the picture, the caption read, "Finally, the perfect match." I stared at those words until something inside me gave way. Not because I wanted her back, because I realized I had spent years trying to earn the right to occupy my own life. The next morning, my alarm went off at 5:30. At 5:58, I entered a small training studio beneath the Hawthorne Bridge. A trainer named Marcus Reed found me studying a row of machines like they were written in another language. He was direct. "First day?" he asked. "First day in a long time." He handed me a clipboard. "We start with what works, then we build the rest." I lasted 9 minutes on the treadmill. My lungs burned. Sweat soaked through my shirt. I locked myself in a bathroom stall until the dizziness passed. Then I washed my face and went back out. Marcus adjusted the speed and pointed to the clock. 2 more minutes. The next morning, my whole body hurt. I returned anyway. That became the pattern of the next 7 months. Alarms in darkness, meals prepared on Sundays, slow progress nobody applauded, and the discovery that discipline could be quieter than anger and stronger than humiliation. I was not trying to become someone Evelyn would regret losing. I was trying to become someone I would never abandon again.
By the second month, I could run 2 miles without stopping. By the third, Marcus introduced me to a nutritionist named Lena Ortiz, who never asked what number I wanted to see on a scale. "What do you need your body to do?" she asked. The question stopped me. For years, I had treated food like evidence in a case against myself. Too much meant failure. Too little meant control. Lena taught me to think in terms of fuel, recovery, sleep, and strength. The difference sounded small. It changed everything. I stopped weighing every meal like a confession. I began cooking because I wanted to care for the person who would wake up in my body the next morning. By month 4, I slept through the night. By the 5th, a former coworker passed me outside the studio, looked away, then turned back. "Ethan?" Her surprise should have felt satisfying. Instead, it felt distant. My shoulders were broader. My face was leaner. I had lost 29 pounds, but the real changes were harder to photograph. I no longer apologized before disagreeing. I stopped laughing at jokes that made me smaller. I declined invitations without inventing excuses. I started therapy too. Dr. Helen Park had a quiet office above a bookstore and a talent for asking questions that sounded harmless until they opened something. The one that stayed with me was, "When did you begin believing your needs were an inconvenience?" I blamed Evelyn at first. Helen waited. Eventually, I understood that Evelyn had not created that belief, she had simply benefited from it. I had been shrinking long before I met her. That realization did not erase what she and Noah had done. It gave the future back to me. 7 months after I found them together, the wedding date arrived. Alder Cove Lodge sat 40 minutes west of Portland, surrounded by pine trees and a lake so still it looked artificial. Evelyn's mother had spent more than $60,000 on the event. 160 guests, imported flowers, a string quartet, a glass pavilion beside the water. My plan was to see none of it. Then Daniel called. At 8:47 I was driving. At 9:26 I turned through the iron gates of Alder Cove. The parking area looked like an evacuation site for wealthy people. Guests in formal clothes stood in clusters, whispering into phones. A bridesmaid sat on the curb with her shoes beside her, mascara running down her face. 2 groomsmen argued near a black SUV while an older man in a tuxedo paced in circles. Inside the lodge, the damage was visible. A table had been overturned near the reception hall. White roses lay crushed across the floor. A champagne tower had collapsed, leaving broken glass and champagne soaking into the carpet. No one was cleaning it. Daniel found me near the entrance. His tie was loose. His face looked 10 years older than when I last saw him. "She found the messages," he said. "What messages?" He glanced toward the staircase. Noah has been seeing someone else.
Daniel's words should have shocked me. Instead, they landed with the familiarity of hearing an old song through a wall. With who? I asked. A woman named Camille Rhodes. She is a photographer in Seattle. They've been messaging for at least 5 months. 5 months? That meant Noah had proposed to Evelyn while planning his escape. Daniel rubbed both hands over his face. One of the groomsmen borrowed Noah's phone to call the florist. A message appeared on the screen. Evelyn saw it. What did it say? He hesitated. That he could not wait until this performance was over. A bitter laugh escaped me. There are hundreds of messages, Daniel continued. He called her predictable, said marrying her would help his career and that her family connections could open doors. He told Camille he would stay long enough to make the wedding look believable. Through the open doors, I could see guests drifting across the lawn with nowhere to go. The quartet sat beneath the pavilion, instruments resting in their laps. Where is Noah? Gone. Evelyn? Upstairs. My mother wants to speak to you. Before I could ask why, Margaret Mercer appeared at the end of the hall. She wore a pale gold dress, pearls, and the expression of someone whose carefully managed world had ignored her instructions. Her lipstick was perfect. Everything behind it was breaking. She walked straight toward me. For years, Margaret had assessed me with polite disappointment. Dependable but ordinary, she once told Evelyn. Within my hearing, that stability was admirable as long as it did not become stagnation. Now she took both my hands. Ethan, she said, you came. You asked Daniel to call me? Her eyes moved over me, from my shoes to my face. I recognized the calculation. This time the result pleased her. You look extraordinary. I pulled my hands away. What happened? She repeated Daniel's story, but with sharper details. Noah had called Evelyn a stepping stone. He joked that the Mercer wedding would look excellent in his professional portfolio. When she confronted him in the garden, he did not deny anything. He told her she had been convenient. Then he walked out wearing the custom suit her family had paid for. Margaret lowered her voice. She is devastated. I'm sure she is. She made a terrible mistake with you. The sentence hung between us. 7 months earlier, Margaret had defended her daughter. She told mutual friends that relationships ended when two people grew in different directions. Now betrayal had made the past simple. You loved her, she said. You were loyal. You understood commitment. I waited. Her fingers tightened around her clutch. The officiant is still here. The guests are assembled. We could change the ceremony. Something private, tasteful. People would understand after the shock. For a moment, I believed I had misunderstood her. Then I saw the hope in her face. She wanted me to marry Evelyn. Today.
For several seconds, I could only stare at her. You want me to marry your daughter, I said, at the wedding she planned with the man she left me for. Margaret's face tightened. Not like that. How else is there to say it? She is hurt. People make decisions when they are frightened. She was not frightened when she lied to me for 4 months. Margaret glanced toward guests outside, as if the sight of them might strengthen her argument. Everything is already here. The flowers, the food, the musicians. The minister can adjust the paperwork. We could make it intimate, a story about finding your way back to the right person. I almost admired how quickly she had turned disaster into public relations. This is not a story, I said, and I am not the replacement groom. Her voice sharpened. Do not let pride destroy a second chance. That word, pride, brought something cold and steady into focus. Your daughter told me I had become an embarrassment to her. She said I lacked ambition. She said I no longer matched the life she wanted. Margaret's mouth flattened. She was wrong. She was honest about how little she valued me. That does not become romantic because another man valued her even less. The hallway went silent around us. Daniel stood several feet away, watching without interfering. Behind him, a member of the catering staff set down a tray and disappeared. Margaret stepped closer. She knows now what she lost. No, she knows what Noah was. That is the same thing. It is not. I looked past her at the ruined reception hall. Champagne darkened the carpet. White petals had been crushed beneath polished shoes. Outside, 160 guests waited for somebody to give the day a shape they could understand. 7 months earlier, I would have tried to save it. I would have saved the flowers, the explanations, the family reputation, and Evelyn from the weight of her choices. I would have called that love. Now I knew better. I hope she gets through this, I said. I mean that. Margaret's eyes softened, mistaking compassion for surrender. But I will not be used to make this day less humiliating. Ethan, I was good enough when she needed patience. I was disposable when she wanted excitement. Now that excitement has abandoned her, I am suddenly the correct choice? She had no answer. I stepped around her. At the front doors, Daniel caught up with me. For what it's worth, he said quietly, I told her not to call you. Thank you. He nodded toward the stairs. Evelyn asked if you came. I stopped. What did you tell her? That you did. And? She started crying. I waited for the old reflex.
the urge to go upstairs, sit beside her, and carry what she could not. It never came. "Take care of your sister," I said. Then I walked outside, crossed the lawn beneath the eyes of people pretending not to stare, and got into my car. My hands did not start shaking until I reached the gate.
I made it 6 miles before I had to pull over. The shaking had climbed from my hands into my shoulders. I turned into a gas station beside Highway 26 and sat with both feet pressed against the floor. I had imagined leaving Alder Cove would feel victorious. It did not. It felt like surviving an accident no one else could see. My breathing came too fast. I counted the way Marcus had taught me. 4 seconds in, hold, 6 seconds out. Again. Eventually, my body understood that I was safe. At the next red light, I started laughing. It was not happiness. It was the helpless laugh that lives directly beside crying. I laughed at the flowers, the ruined carpet, Margaret's proposal, and the absurd idea that a minister could replace one groom with another before lunch. By the time I reached Portland, the laughter had burned itself out. I showered, changed, made coffee, and sat on my couch with the curtains open. At 2:17, Maya texted. "Apparently you rejected Margaret in front of everyone. People are saying you came to humiliate Evelyn." I turned my phone face down. At 3:05, Daniel sent a shorter message. "You did nothing wrong." At 4:30, my sister Rachel called from Denver. She had already heard the story from someone I had not spoken to in years. She listened while I told her what happened. When I finished, she was silent. "Are you okay?" she asked. "I think so." "Actually okay, or pretending because you were tired of people checking?" I looked around my apartment. Nothing inside me was asking to run back. "Actually okay." Rachel believed me. At 7:36, someone knocked on my door. 3 knocks. I knew before I stood up. There was no version of that day in which Evelyn did not eventually come to me. Whenever her life broke, she returned to the person who had always helped carry the pieces. I placed my mug on the table and opened the door. She had changed out of her wedding dress. She wore black trousers and a cream blouse buttoned incorrectly near the collar. Her hair, once pinned into a perfect twist, had fallen loose around her face. Her makeup had been repaired, cried through, and repaired again. For the first time since I had known her, Evelyn Mercer looked completely unprepared. Her lips parted as if she had rehearsed an opening sentence on the drive over. Then she saw me. Not glanced at me, saw me. Her eyes moved slowly from my shoulders to my face. I watched recognition struggle against the image she had carried for 7 months. "You look different," she whispered. "I am different." She swallowed. "I heard what you said to my mother. She should not have called me." "I know. I did not ask her to." The porch light caught the exhaustion beneath her eyes. For 1 second, she looked like the woman I had once loved, stripped of certainty and performance. Then she said my name. "Ethan."
"How are you?" I asked. Evelyn looked down at the porch boards. "I don't know." That was the first honest answer she had given me in a long time. A car passed through the neighborhood. Somewhere nearby, a dog barked twice and stopped. The world continued, indifferent to her wedding collapsing before noon. "I thought I knew him," she said. "I thought what happened between us meant something." It did. Her eyes lifted. "It meant both of you were willing to hurt me to get what you wanted." She flinched. "I deserve that?" "This isn't about what you deserve." "Then what is it about?" "Consequences." The word sat between us. "My mother told me what she asked you." "I'm sorry she did that." "Would you have said yes if things had been different?" There it was. Not an apology. A search for a door. I looked at the woman I had once imagined growing old beside. I remembered the way she sang badly while cooking, and the night she sat with me in a hospital corridor while my mother was in surgery. The love had been real. So had the betrayal. "Different how?" I asked. "If I had come to you before today, if I had admitted I made a mistake, you didn't come before today. I was ashamed. You were engaged." Her face tightened. "I thought I loved him." "You probably did." "How can you say that?" "Because love does not automatically make someone safe." She looked at me as though I had taken away the last argument she expected to use. "I'm sorry," she said. I had imagined hearing those words for months, and those imaginings, they repaired something. They returned dignity and balanced a scale that had never stopped tilting. Now they were only words on a porch. "I'm sorry I lied to you," she continued. "I'm sorry I let you think you were the problem. I'm sorry I chose someone who made me feel exciting and then blamed you for being steady." I felt the apology land. It mattered. It just did not change the answer. "Thank you for saying it." Tears filled her eyes. "Is that all? What else do you want me to say? That maybe we can talk?" "Not today. Later." "We are talking now!" "You know what I mean." I did. She wanted the possibility left unlocked. A future conversation. A coffee. A slow path back toward the person who had once forgiven her before she finished hurting him. 7 months earlier, I would have offered it. Instead, I shook my head. "I can forgive you without returning to you." Her mouth opened, then closed. "I don't know who I am without any of this," she whispered. For a moment, I wanted to comfort her. Then I remembered Helen's question. "When did you begin believing your needs were an inconvenience?" I had learned the answer. The moment I made another person's pain more important than my own safety. "You'll figure it out," I said. "But I can't do it for you." She cried quietly, as though grief offended her sense of order.
I stayed in the doorway. I did not invite her inside.
Evelyn stood on my porch for another minute, wiping tears from her cheeks. "I don't expect you to believe me," she said, "but I did love you. I believe you." That seemed to hurt her more than anger would have. Then why does it feel like none of it matters? Because love is not the only thing that matters. She looked past me into the apartment. The lamp was on, my coffee sat cooling on the table. The space behind me was quiet and mine. "I thought you would hate me." "I did for a while. And now? Now I don't want to carry you anymore." Her face changed, as if she finally understood that the version of me she had counted on no longer existed. "I don't know where to go," she whispered. "Go home. My mother is there. Then go somewhere else." The old Ethan would have heard cruelty in that answer. The man in the doorway understood the difference between cruelty and a boundary. Evelyn nodded. "I am glad you are doing well." I could not tell whether she meant it. It was no longer my job to know. "Good night, Evelyn." She turned toward the steps, then stopped. Was there ever a chance? I thought about the question. There had been hundreds. The night she first lied, the morning after, the moment she blamed my body and confidence for choices she had already made, every day before the ring, every week before the wedding. But she was not asking about those chances. She was asking whether disaster had created a new one. "No," I said. This time, she did not argue. I closed the door gently. I listened to her footsteps fade, then I returned to the couch. Nothing cinematic happened. There was no music, no rush of victory, no feeling that every wound had been repaid. There was only quiet. But it was different from the silence I had lived inside with Evelyn. That silence had been crowded with everything I was afraid to say. This one had room in it. Noah's affair became public. Evelyn vanished from social media. Margaret told people I had behaved coldly. Others turned me into the hero of a story I had never wanted. I refused every invitation to explain myself. Noah sent an email 2 months later. He wrote that he had destroyed the best relationships of his life because he was addicted to being wanted. Losing both Evelyn and me had forced him to see himself clearly. I read it once, then I deleted it. Forgiveness does not always require a conversation. A year after the canceled wedding, I drove past Alder Cove on the way to the coast. I saw the iron gates and remembered the guests, the ruined flowers, and Margaret trying to place me into an empty suit. Then the lodge disappeared behind the trees. I drove on. That is the ending people usually find disappointing. I did not return to Evelyn. I did not confront Noah. I did not become perfect. I simply built a life in which I no longer needed to disappear to be loved. Once you learn the difference between being chosen and being valued, you never confuse them again.